we're going to a different economy, and we're going to be learning more about that as we go. But clearly, we're learning that things can be done from remote locations. We're learning that technology can replace people even more than we thought.
We're not going back to the same economy. We're recovering, but to a different economy, and it'll be one that is more leveraged to technology. And I worry that that is going to make it even more difficult than it was for many workers.
In Silicon Valley, and my friends who work in technology know that what we did to the manufacturing workers, we are now going to do to the retail workers, the call center workers, the fast food workers, the truck drivers, and then even bookkeepers, accountants, insurance agents, lawyers, and on through the economy. So what happened to the manufacturing workers is a very clear sign of what's going to
tend to seed their digital yuan into the global environment by giving it away to visitors at next winter's Olympics. When they arrive at the airport, they're going to get yuan digital wallets. They're going to receive digital yuan. They're going to use it throughout their visits to Beijing, and then they're going to take it back to their home countries. They see this as a huge advantage. Why? Because who controls the underlying protocols, who controls the underlying standards of the future of money will control the future of money. Who controls the...
Welcome to the Crypto Teacher. And guys, you know I come with that video just to make you think. And this one is about the rise of China, R3, Ripple, private blockchain, the central banks. Guys, when it comes to the actual banks, we know what? What does the Crypto Teacher teach you? They're the biggest drug dealing, money laundering, gun running son of a guns. Now, what's important in this video, that Brad states that Alipay is in New York. And as we know, Alipay is the avenue where digital yuan is going to replace that. We know Alipay is not going to be the major payment processor. We know it's going to be the digital yuan, the new global currency. And then also, guys, we have R3, Ripple, Stellar. They're all over in the emerging markets. Why are they all over the emerging markets? Because that's who's going to rise. You're talking about billions of dollars they're going to be able to make money off of what? Fees. That's what the bank does. And what's great about this also is that we know that Ripple works with the central banks. We already know this, guys. Remember, the American economy is going to be number 2 now. Nobody's going to care about the American economy anymore because we're not going to have the global reserve currency. So once you get that into your mind and understand that China's on the rise, so that's where you see all the money going over to. The Asian connection is what the New World Order wants. Because remember, when it comes to the New World Order, everything is planned out. You have a wonderful day.
So listen, given my background, if you look at CLS or you look at Swift and other innovations, since we're, the R3 quarter platform works for all industries, okay? But we're talking about finance here. It took those organizations over a decade to get live. I had a treasury platform that I started at the same time as R3 called Liquidity Edge, which I sold to a company called Market Access. That took 6 years and it's only getting traction now. So I think the big thing for us is that we made design choices around privacy, scalability, and security. Mm-hmm. We avoided the drug of the hype of trying to get into public blockchain. People are now realize that the public blockchain was a mistake. They're trying to implement privacy on top of it. People are now concentrating on the environmental impact of proof of work and the like. So it's playing to our strength, and it's getting real this year. One thing I want to mention is the entire Italian banking system will be on Corda for interbank payments this year. Hundreds of millions of transactions will be transacted on Corda this year. So it is getting real. It's been 6 years. That feels all right to me.
One of the first banks that Ripple signed, so today we have a product in market that's, we're releasing version 4. When we launched version 1.0, which is always an exciting time for a tech company, you release a product, it's version 1.0. We launched that product, we were partnered with one of the largest banks in the Middle East, and we went to market and we went live. And we had a call from a very upset Middle Eastern banker saying, wait a minute, people can see my transactions. I don't want people to see my transactions. So look, blockchain is powerful in a public ledger can be leveraged to make transactions. But banks, I mean, if every SCB transaction was written to a public ledger, would SCB be excited about that? The answer is no, I'll tell you very certainly. The nature of how we have evolved our technology, yes, some of it, XRP is a public open ledger. A different part of Ripple's technology that connects banks to the liquidity solutions, these are private, think about it almost as a private temporary blockchain between two banks. It's cryptographically signing the transaction, holding it in escrow and releasing it at the same time, so you never have a situation where a transaction doesn't complete. But the point I would make is, those who espouse this idea of, look, all transactions should be open, I look at that and I think, that is not the real world. We can talk about the origins, particularly around Bitcoin and to some of the degree other tokens, has been this idea of, hey, we're going to circumvent governments. We don't want the government involved. We're going to circumvent banks. Look, Ripple, we come at it from exactly the opposite point of view. Governments aren't going away. By extension, banks are definitely not going away. We can enable banks to enable an internet of value. If you want to enable an internet of value, you have to connect the repositories of value. The repositories of value are the banks. We want to work with the banks, with financial institutions, with payment providers, with Linlin Pay or PayPal or fill in blank, to dramatically accelerate the nature of how payments occur today and reducing that friction.
In the earlier panel, I think there was a comment a little bit like, well, Alipay is just embedding in New York City taxis as addressing the tourists. Alipay has grand ambitions in the United States. Really? I agree 100% with Dan that each market has its unique.
Do they admit that? I'm not sure they admit that, but you think that's they eventually want to be a big player in payments here?
I think there's no doubt about that.
What makes you say that?
I'm sure Dan and I both have had conversations with people at both those companies, and I think this is a large economy. They want growth. They think about. Alipay in particular has been incredibly strategic about making investments and stitching together. They're the largest shareholder in Paytm. They're the largest shareholder in I can't remember the payment network in Indonesia, and they're in some ways they're building their own version of an interoperable payment network, but closed to their world.
What do you think that you would like to see from financial institutions and governments, knowing that you work with both very closely?
I love this question in part because I think it is so important that the industry is proactive in engaging regulators. I think many in the industry are quick to blame regulators. As one manifestation of this, Ripple brought together about 30 plus central banks from around the world. I think it was 2 weeks ago, yesterday or the day before. My time zones are screwed up, but in New York City, we had a private meeting where it was, 20% it was talking about what Ripple is doing and socializing with central banks from around the world what Ripple is doing, but 80% of it was letting the central banks talk to each other. We have found that when we're meeting one-on-one with central banks, that we're having a lot of one-on-one conversations. They want to understand what other central banks are thinking about blockchain. What are they thinking about crypto? What are they thinking about the risks, the pros and cons to some of the evolutions? And so for us, it was, let's create a catalyst to bring them together and talk about it. And yes, we were one participant, but it was important, frankly, it was a private event because I think it was easier to be open and direct about what's going on around the world. But I think we all should need to be proactive. And I think those that like to throw the regulators under the bus and say they're stymieing innovation, they're slowing things down. To your point, they provide a critical piece to the stability and mitigating fraud. And these are things that matter, whether it's blockchain or other digital assets, that they matter.